Hey guys, welcome back. In the last video, we explored about what APIs are and how they work. We used the weather app also as an example to understand how APIs connect apps to the system. Today, we will go deeper and see how developers use APIs to make applications smarter and faster. We'll look at how to make API requests and even test APIs using tools like Postman. So let's get started. An API request is like a sending a question from an app to an API that requesting for any certain data or to perform any action. Just for example, imagine the API as a middleman. When the app asks any question, the API delivers this question to the system and retrieves the answer and then relays it back to the application. Every API request has three main parts. First one is endpoint URL, second one is HTTP method, and the third one is headers and parameters. Let's understand all these main parts in detail with example. We will use the following example URL from an weather API. Endpoint URL is like the address of the API. It tells the app where to send the request. In this case, this tells the app to use the Open Weather API to access the weather resource. HTTP method tells the API what action have to perform. There are four main types of methods are there. First one is get method, second one is post method, third one is put method, and the fourth one is delete method. The get method is used to fetch the data. For example, in our case, we are using get API to access the weather data. The post method is like if you are uploading any post on the Instagram are called post method. Put method to update existing data. For example, on Instagram, if you are updating your profile are called put method. And the fourth one is delete method. If you are removing any post or deleting any comment post are called delete method. So these are the four methods of HTTP. The third part is header. Header carries additional information like in header we define two important things, the content type and authorization. Content type tells the API what format you want the data, like JSON or XML. It's like specifying how you want to receive your information. And the authorization is where you provide your API key or token or whatever. Maybe it can be client ID or client server. But in this example, the API ID, your API key act like a part of authentication. And the parameters are extra details sent with the request to refine. In this case, the parameter are Q, Mumbai, specify the city for which we want the weather. And API ID or API key, the API key is used to authenticate the request. This parameter are added in the endpoint URL as query string after A. If you add multiple parameters, they are separated by an AND. Most of the APIs send the data in their JSON or XML format. These are two most common data format. JSON that stands for JavaScript Object Notation. These are lightweight and easy to use and also easy to read also. This is how it looks. And the second one is XML, stands for Extensible Markup Language. These are more structured but heavier. And this is look like this. Most modern APIs prefer JSON because it's faster and easier to work with. Before adding an API to an app, developers test it to make sure it works correctly. One popular tool is there for testing APIs is to Postman. Let me show you how it works. First open the Postman and create a new request. Then enter the API endpoint. For example, let's use a free public API. Currently I have an open API for an employee table. You can also get an open API from Joke API or Ninja's API for testing purpose. Then Select the HTTP method, like in our case we will use get method to fetch the data, and if any parameters or header is needed, then you can add here. In our case, there is no any authentication required. This means it's an open URL. Then click next to make the request. Before we conclude, it's important to understand how to handle errors while testing APIs. These are common errors. 404 not found. This means the request source doesn't exist. Second one is 401 unauthorized. The API key is missing or invalid. Third one is 500 server error. It will come when something went wrong on the server side. When testing, always check the error codes in the response, as developer also add meaningful errors message in their apps like please try again later or unable to connect to the server. And that is how developers test APIs to make sure they work properly. Today we learn about API request, testing with Postman, and how developers start working with APIs. In the next video, we will build a small weather app to show how APIs are integrated into real projects. If you enjoy this video, please like, share, and subscribe to Ikra Technology. Thanks for your watching, and I will see you next video.